Lara Jean is in Seoul, South Korea, writing a letter to her boyfriend, Peter. She is on a trip with her older sister Margot, younger sister Kitty, their father Dan, and his fiancée Trina. It is their last big trip before Lara Jean finishes her senior year of high school. During their visit, they go to the famous Love Locks Bridge, where couples place locks to symbolize their love. While looking at the locks, they find one that Dan and his late wife, Eve, had left years ago. Seeing it brings back memories for Dan, and his daughters share the moment with him. Meanwhile, Kitty, the youngest of the sisters, is excited about exploring the city. When she sees a boy nearby, she walks up to him and asks him to take a picture of their family. The boy, whose name is Day, smiles at her and agrees. As he takes the picture, he flirts with Kitty, and she quickly develops a crush on him. Dan, Margot, and Lara Jean notice the interaction and tease Kitty about it. After their trip, they return home, and Lara Jean is anxious about her college acceptance letters. She and Peter have planned to go to Stanford together, and she hopes everything works out the way they imagined. When she arrives, Peter surprises her with a thoughtful, "Welcome home" celebration. Later, they watch the movie Say Anything together. As they talk, they wonder if they have their own special love story, like couples in romantic movies. They discuss whether they had a meet cute, the kind of charming first meeting often seen in films, or if they have a song that represents their relationship, like the one John Cusack plays for Ione Skye in the movie. Lara Jean returns to school with her friends Chris and Lucas. As they walk through the halls, they see students putting together elaborate promposals, with some using posters, flowers, and even performances to ask their dates to prom. Excitement is also building for the upcoming senior trip to New York. Later, Peter tells Lara Jean that he made her a playlist with songs from Oasis on Spotify. He hopes that one of the songs could become their song, something special that represents their relationship. Meanwhile, at home, Dan proposes to Trina, and she happily says yes. As Lara Jean and Kitty sit together, they start discussing wedding plans and what their family should do to celebrate. In the middle of their conversation, Lara Jean receives an email from Stanford. She quickly opens it, hoping for good news, but her heart sinks. She has been rejected. Chris and Kitty try to comfort her as she processes the disappointment. A few moments later, Margot FaceTimes her to check in. Margot suggests considering other colleges, like NYU, but Lara Jean gets upset and snaps at her, saying she doesn't want to be far from their family the way Margot is. As she sits with her phone, feeling overwhelmed, Peter texts her, asking if she got into Stanford. At the same time, Margot sends another message, asking if everything is okay between them. Without paying close attention, Lara Jean types, "Of course. Love you," thinking she is replying to Margot. However, she accidentally sends it to Peter instead. Before she can fix the mistake, Peter shows up at her house, excited and ready to celebrate. Thinking she got in, he takes her to their favorite diner. Lara Jean doesn't know how to tell him the truth yet, and things get even more complicated when Peter surprises her with a promposal. Using a plate of strawberry pancakes, he asks her to prom. Not wanting to ruin the moment, Lara Jean says yes, even though she still hasn't told him about Stanford. Lara Jean feels too anxious to open any more college emails, so she gives Kitty access to her account and asks her to check them instead. Kitty and Trina sit together as they read the next email. After a moment, they excitedly tell Lara Jean that she has been accepted to Berkeley. This news gives her some relief. Although it's not Stanford, it's only a day's drive away, meaning she and Peter can still see each other often. A few days later, the senior class flies to New York City for their senior trip. The city is buzzing with energy, and the students are excited to explore. Lara Jean and Peter take advantage of a free moment and sneak away from the group to visit a small cafe that Lara Jean has always wanted to go to. As they sit together, enjoying the atmosphere, Lara Jean finally decides to tell Peter the truth: she didn't get into Stanford. Peter's face falls at the news, and for a moment, he seems disappointed. But after thinking it over, he reassures her that Berkeley is still close enough for them to see each other regularly. He suggests that after her freshman year, she could apply to transfer to Stanford so they can be together. His encouragement makes Lara Jean feel a little better, and she starts to believe that maybe things will still work out. As the senior class begins their tour of New York City, Trevor surprises Chris with a promposal. Even though she usually acts uninterested in romantic gestures, Chris accepts with a playful smile. The students are then split into groups alphabetically, which means Lara Jean and Peter can't stay together. Peter is grouped with Trevor, while Lara Jean ends up with Chris. As the girls explore the city, their tour takes them to NYU's campus. While there, they unexpectedly run into Jen, Lara Jean's former friend and Peter's ex-girlfriend. Jen is taking a tour with a senior girl named Heather, who she seems to have befriended. Heather invites them to a party on campus, and Lara Jean and Chris decide to go along. Later in the evening, one of Heather's friends mentions that her ex-boyfriend refuses to return a pink couch that belongs to her. She convinces the group to help her take it back. They wait until the subway is nearly empty and then sneak onto a train with the couch after successfully retrieving it from the apartment. The entire adventure is wild and thrilling, something Lara Jean never expected to experience. For the first time, she feels drawn to the idea of going to NYU, realizing she might enjoy life in New York more than she thought. When she gets home, Lara Jean has a heart-to-heart with Margot. She apologizes for snapping at her before and acknowledges that she was upset about college rejections. Their conversation shifts to their father's upcoming wedding. Margot reassures Lara Jean that she isn't against Dan remarrying, but it does feel strange to see him with someone other than their mom. Before they end their call, Lara Jean hesitates for a moment before admitting that she really liked New York, maybe more than she expected. Lara Jean invites Peter to go bowling for a fun night out together. As they arrive, they are caught off guard when they see Peter's father, Mr. Kavinsky, at the bowling alley with his new family. Lara Jean is excited to finally meet Peter's dad, but Peter's expression quickly changes. He is still hurt by his father's absence in his life and isn't ready to act like everything is normal. When Mr. Kavinsky invites them to join his family for a game, Peter declines. Lara Jean can see that it's difficult for him, but she doesn't push him to stay. Later, as they talk, Peter finally opens up about his feelings. He admits to Lara Jean that, even though he's still angry at his dad for leaving, a part of him still misses him. He struggles with the idea of reconnecting but isn't sure if he's ready. Lara Jean listens and comforts him, understanding that it's not an easy situation for him to navigate. Sometime later, Lara Jean makes a shocking discovery: Kitty had been hiding an acceptance letter from NYU. When she confronts her, Kitty admits that she didn't want Lara Jean to change her plans, thinking it might complicate things with Peter. Lara Jean, however, feels a mix of emotions: excitement at the idea of going to NYU but also fear of how Peter will react if she chooses to move even farther away. Wanting some guidance, she turns to her dad and asks if he and Trina are only together because they live close to each other. Dan thinks about it before answering honestly: being close does make things easier, but at the end of the day, what matters most is that they truly love each other. His words give Lara Jean a new perspective on her situation. Finally, she gathers the courage to tell Peter the truth: she wants to go to NYU. As expected, he is disappointed, and it's clear that he's not entirely happy about her decision. However, after taking a moment, he tells her that if NYU is what she really wants, he will support her choice. Peter hands Lara Jean his yearbook and asks her to write something special in it. She takes it home, wanting to think carefully about what to say. At home, while she's still struggling with her decision about college, Kitty makes a sharp remark. She suggests that the reason Lara Jean is so conflicted isn't really about school, it's because she's unsure about her future with Peter. Dan overhears and immediately scolds Kitty for being insensitive. Lara Jean doesn't say anything, but Kitty's words stick with her. Soon, prom night arrives. Lara Jean, Peter, and their friends get dressed up and head to the dance. The atmosphere is filled with excitement as everyone enjoys their last big event before graduation. They dance, laugh, and make the most of the night. When it's time to announce the prom king and queen, the crowd cheers as Peter's name is called, along with a girl named Emily Nussbaum. Lara Jean watches as he accepts the title, feeling a little detached from the moment. After the dance, Lara Jean and Peter return to her room, still caught up in the emotions of the night. In that quiet, intimate moment, Lara Jean decides that she wants to take the next step in their relationship and have sex for the first time. But as Peter looks at her, he hesitates. He asks her why she chose this moment, and as they talk, he starts to understand. She's doing this as a way to hold on to him before they have to be apart. Realizing that their relationship is heading toward an uncertain future, they both come to a painful conclusion. Instead of pretending things will stay the same, they break up again, knowing that distance may pull them further apart. After the breakup, Lara Jean is heartbroken. Chris comes over to comfort her, offering her usual blunt but caring support. She reminds Lara Jean that she has a bright future ahead, even if things with Peter didn't go as planned. Later that night, Kitty quietly enters Lara Jean's room. She looks guilty and finally admits why she kept the NYU acceptance letter from her. She knew that if Lara Jean had seen it right away, she would struggle even more with the decision, torn between staying close to Peter or choosing the life she truly wanted. Lara Jean, instead of being angry, understands her little sister's intentions. She hugs Kitty, appreciating the honesty and the love behind it. Meanwhile, Peter decides to meet his dad at a cafe. Though he is still hurt by the past, he listens as Mr. Kavinsky opens up. His father admits that he made a terrible mistake in abandoning their family. He explains that at the time, he wasn't ready for the responsibility, but that doesn't mean he didn't care. Now, he wants to make things right and be part of Peter's life. At first, Peter remains guarded, but as he listens, he realizes something. If his dad is willing to put in the effort to rebuild their relationship, maybe it's worth giving it a chance. He softens, and though things won't be perfect right away, he decides to take the first step toward reconnecting with his father. The day of Dan and Trina's wedding finally arrives. The family gathers in their backyard for the ceremony, and Margot returns home to be part of the celebration. Wanting to avoid any awkwardness for her dad, Lara Jean decides not to invite Peter. The wedding is beautiful, and Dan and Trina exchange heartfelt vows. Afterward, the guests move on to the reception, where there is laughter, dancing, and a strong sense of family. As the night winds down, Kitty pulls Lara Jean aside and tells her to grab something from the tent outside. Curious, Lara Jean steps inside and finds her yearbook. When she opens it, she sees a long, heartfelt message from Peter. He writes about the moment he first noticed her, not in high school, but back in 6th grade. At a school ceremony, Lara Jean had gone up to receive an award, and her hair got stuck in the chair. Peter had helped free her, and when she smiled at him, it was the moment he first fell for her. He goes on to admit that he hurt her because he was scared, but despite everything, he still feels incredibly lucky to have been with her. Tucked inside the yearbook is something else, a new contract, just like the one they made when they first pretended to date. But this time, the agreement is real. They promise to make their relationship last, no matter the distance. Before she can react, Peter steps out from behind her. She looks up at him, overwhelmed, and he plays an Oasis song, the one from the playlist he made for her. They sway together under the night sky, holding on to each other. Later, when the house is quiet and everyone is asleep, they sneak up to her room, and this time, they finally sleep together. Soon after, the school year comes to an end, and graduation day arrives. Lara Jean and her friends say their goodbyes, knowing their lives are about to change. In the fall, Lara Jean moves into her new dorm at NYU, setting up her room and embracing the excitement of her new journey. In her final narration, she reflects on her relationship with Peter, saying that she truly believes they will make long-distance work. The last scene shows Peter driving to New York to visit her, proving that their love is still strong. Lara Jean smiles as she adds that long-distance relationships have one great advantage: there's always a reason to write love letters. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.